rocking their world. The company I was working for had the plumbing and heating on a new science facility at a local private college. The union I belonged to was a combination local, so we were taught not only to be a plumber, but to be a pipe fitter as well. A good training ground. The job I had on this project was to be a welder's helper. We were set up in the basement, fabricating pipe for the hot water piping. There was a large duct, about 6 feet square, setting next to us to make for some very nice air circulation. It was hot that summer, so the job located where it was cool and out of the sun was a godsend. The guys I worked with were all in their mid-20s. They were full of fun and did a lot of crazy things to each other as well as other people. They worked hard and played hard. Looking into their bloodshot eyes every morning proved that point. One morning, Joe came in after a long night of drinking with a bad hangover. He was the welder that I was helping. His dad was the general foreman on the project. He was mad Joe had come in hungover and told me to make life tough on him that day. No problem on my part. We set up a weld and made all the tacks to hold the fitting in place. While he was welding, my no-brainer job was to watch for fire and clean the weld as he changed rods. To weld, you need to clamp a ground lead securely to one end of the pipe before you strike the arc. This was accomplished with a spring-type clamp that could easily be taken on and off. Joe was a little bit impatient. When things would go wrong, he'd flip his welding hood up and cuss. Sometimes the ground wasn't secured correctly, or the machine could be dialed in wrong. He positioned himself and got ready to make the weld. Flipped his hood down, and just as he did, I removed the ground clamp from the pipe and held it in my hand. He clicked the rod on the weld, clicked it again, nothing happened. He clicked it one last time and nothing happened. He started to cuss, flipped his head up, and with eyes now unprotected, tried one last time to click. I had slipped the ground clamp back on the pipe, and it flashed. This made him mad, and he flipped his hood down again. As he did, I took the clamp back off again. He hadn't noticed I had the clamp in my hand. He clicked a couple more times. Again his hood flew up, and I turned away, doing something else, after I had slipped the clamp back on. He was cussing and looked at the welding machine, made some adjustments, checked the ground, and flipped his hood back down. I pulled the clamp back off again. Click, click, he hit it again. This time he threw off his hood. He was cussing like a wild man, and I slipped the clamp back on. One more time, he struck the arc. Not paying attention, he was looking right at the weld and about to get a weld flash. Now he was really mad. He knew that in a short amount of time, his eyes would feel like they were filled with gravel. I figured that was enough, so I left him alone for the rest of the day. Work went well for the rest of the morning until one of the other journeymen came up and asked if I had ever made an acetylene bomb. I said yes. We would see rats run into a pipe outside in a pipe pile, and we would run over and put rags in both ends of the pipe so they couldn't get out. Then we'd take the acetylene bottle outside and leak some into the pipe. We'd light a rag, fuse, and run back into the building. When the fire burned down into the pipe, it would ignite the gas and blow the rat out of the end of the pipe. Gross, but fun. The sheet metal workers would sit next to that main duct on the main floor when they ate lunch. The journeyman told me it would be a great idea to set off an acetylene bomb and shake these guys up during lunch. He had me use duct tape to seal off the duct. When I finished, he told me to leak some acetylene into the duct and set a fuse. I taped the duct and leaked what I thought was an ample amount of acetylene into the duct. I set a fuse. It was then lunchtime, and the sheet metal workers lined up in front of the duct. I was told to light the fuse. I did so and ran back upstairs. When I filled the duct, I thought I'd put a lot in because the duct was big. That's not necessarily true. When the fire hit the gas, it blew up and made a huge sound. About an 8-foot ball of fire came out of that duct, and the windows rattled. The sheet metal workers all threw their lunches in the air and fell backwards off their seats. The fitters had a big laugh until we heard the fire trucks. Somehow the noise triggered an alarm, and the firemen showed up with 3 trucks and started unrolling hoses. They came running into the building, and all they found were mad sheet metal workers. The juryman told me to run back down and remove all the duct tape. The fire department investigated and concluded that the combination of a hot pipe and a leaking acetylene bottle was the cause of the accident. We were lucky, I thought. Come to find out, our general foreman was a friend of the investigator, and he had smoothed things over. The general foreman came down to the fab shop later that afternoon, and we all got a good verbal beating. He broke up the crew, and all got transferred to another job. My cushy welder's helper job was over, and as a lesson I was put on the most awful job I had as an apprentice. I can still see that ball of fire coming out of the end of the duct, and nothing but lunch boxes flying in the air and guys falling backwards off their seats. Any time I need a little giggle, I think about this.